The Found Connection. Elijah Kim shuffled across the rain-slicked campus pathway, his gaze fixed on the concrete beneath his feet. The library steps were only 20 paces away, his sanctuary from the bustling social world that always left him feeling drained and awkward. The autumn drizzle matched his mood perfectly, gray, persistent, and quietly unremarkable. As a second-year linguistics student, Elijah found comfort in patterns and structures of language that made sense in ways people never did. His narrow shoulders hunched beneath his worn blue jacket as he navigated through clusters of chattering students, careful to avoid eye contact that might invite conversation. The small object caught his attention only because it seemed so out of place. An old-fashioned flip phone, its silver casing muddied but intact, abandoned beside a rain-filled puddle near the library steps. Elijah hesitated, glancing around to see if anyone was searching for a lost phone. The courtyard was emptying as students rushed to escape the worsening weather, each hurrying toward their own destinations with purposeful strides. With tentative fingers, Elijah picked up the phone, wiping away mud with his sleeve. It felt surprisingly warm in his palm, as if recently held. He flipped it open, expecting a dead battery, but the screen glowed with unexpected life. No service provider displayed, just a simple interface that looked years outdated. "I should turn this in to campus security," he murmured to himself, slipping the phone into his pocket as he climbed the library steps. 2 hours later, surrounded by linguistics textbooks and half-finished translation exercises, Elijah had almost forgotten about the found phone. The library had emptied as evening approached, leaving him in blissful silence with only the occasional librarian passing through on final rounds. He worked methodically, losing himself in the familiar comfort of phonetic patterns and morphological structures. The vibration against his thigh startled him so severely he knocked a book to the floor, earning a disapproving glance from the elderly librarian arranging periodicals nearby. The found phone was ringing, an impossibility since it had no service provider. With trembling fingers, Elijah extracted it from his pocket and stared at the screen. "Unknown" flashed insistently. After 4 rings, curiosity overcame caution. He answered with a tentative "hello." Static crackled through the connection for several seconds before a voice emerged, distorted and desperate, wavering between clear reception and broken fragments. "Please, help me," a woman's voice pleaded, emotion straining each syllable. "My daughter's missing. 3 days now. Police won't..." "Think she just ran away." Elijah's pulse quickened. "I think you have the wrong number. I just found this phone." "No accident," the voice insisted, suddenly clearer. "You found it because you're meant to help. Please." "Zoe wouldn't leave without telling me. Something happened to her. I don't..." Elijah stammered, his social anxiety flaring. "I'm just a student. I can't help." "Look at the photo," the voice urged before dissolving back into static. With hesitant movements, Elijah navigated to the photo gallery, finding a single image. A young woman with warm brown skin and curly black hair, laughing beside a colorful mural. She looked about his age with bright eyes that crinkled at the corners, 2 arms wrapped around herself as if containing her own joy, wearing a paint-splattered apron over casual clothes. The phone rang again immediately. This time Elijah answered without hesitation. "Her name is Zoe Winters," the voice explained, more composed now. 21 art student, works at Palmer Gallery downtown. 3 days ago, she texted saying she discovered something important. Then nothing. Police say there's no evidence of foul play. They won't help. Why me?" Elijah whispered, staring at Zoe's smiling face on the screen. "I don't know," the voice admitted. "But you answered, please. Just look into it." "The gallery. Her apartment on Willow Street. Somewhere there's a clue." The connection crackled, growing fainter. "Who are you?" Elijah asked quickly. "How do I reach you?" "Dominic Winters. Her father," the voice replied before the line went dead. Elijah sat motionless, staring at the silent phone in his hand. 5 fingers curled around its edges. Outside, rain pattered against the library windows with increasing intensity as night settled over the campus. He should ignore this, return the phone, forget the conversation, retreat to the safety of his structured academic world. Instead, he found himself searching Palmer Gallery on his laptop, his heart racing with an unfamiliar sense of purpose. Unlikely allies. "You're actually buying this?" Maya Chen leaned across the coffee shop table, Her dark eyes narrowed with journalistic skepticism. A mysterious phone with a desperate plea about a missing girl? Sounds like the setup for a bad horror movie. Elijah fidgeted with his cup, already regretting his decision to tell anyone about the strange call. He'd barely known Maya before yesterday, just another student he occasionally nodded to in the campus library. But she'd overheard his hushed phone conversation with the gallery receptionist and inserted herself into his reluctant investigation with the determined enthusiasm only a third-year journalism major could muster. "I know how it sounds," he replied softly, his voice nearly lost in the bustling coffee shop. "But Zoe is real. The gallery confirmed she works there but hasn't shown up for shifts this week." Maya's expression softened slightly. "And the police really won't investigate?" They said adults go off-grid all the time. "No evidence of foul play." Elijah's eyes remained fixed on his cooling coffee, but her father seems genuinely terrified. Something's happened. Her father, who you can only reach when he mysteriously calls you on a phone with no service provider. Maya tucked a strand of shoulder-length black hair behind her ear. "All right, linguistics boy. I'm in." Elijah's head snapped up. "In what?" "In helping you investigate, obviously." She pulled out a sleek notebook and pen. "My investigative journalism professor keeps saying we need real-world experience." "This is perfect. I'm not sure. Palmer Gallery opens at 10. We should get there before the crowds." Maya was already gathering her things, leaving Elijah no choice but to follow, his heart racing at the prospect of active investigation with this whirlwind of a person. The gallery occupied a renovated industrial space downtown, all exposed brick and polished concrete floors. Abstract paintings and modern sculptures filled the minimalist interior, price tags suggesting clientele far wealthier than 2 university students. A thin man with wire-rimmed glasses observed them warily from behind a reception desk. "We're friends of Zoe Winters," Maya announced confidently. "Is Vanessa around?" "We're worried about Zoe." Before the receptionist could respond, a door opened and a tall woman with platinum blonde hair emerged. She wore an impeccably tailored black dress, her 5 fingers adorned with several expensive-looking rings as she extended her hand. "I'm Vanessa Palmer. You're asking about Zoe?" Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, which assessed them with cool calculation. "Yes," Elijah managed, surprising himself by speaking first. "She hasn't been responding to messages. We're concerned." "Such dedicated friends," Vanessa replied, her tone suggesting she believed anything but. "Zoe called in sick earlier this week. Perhaps she's simply resting." "Without her phone?" Maya challenged. "That doesn't sound like the Zoe we know." Something flickered across Vanessa's perfectly composed features. Annoyance, perhaps, or concern. "Young people and their dramas. I'm sure she's fine." She gestured around the gallery. "Since you're here, please enjoy the exhibition." Zoe was particularly involved with the new Katsaros collection. As Vanessa returned to her office, Maya nudged Elijah toward a series of abstract paintings dominating the far wall. "She's hiding something," she whispered. "Did you notice how she tensed when I mentioned Zoe's phone?" Elijah nodded, scanning the vibrant canvases before them. "These paintings," he began, leaning closer to inspect the signature. "The artist's name is written differently on each one." Maya blinked. "What do you mean?" "The letter formations, the pressure points, they're inconsistent. In handwriting analysis and linguistics, that usually indicates different writers." His fingers hovered over the signatures without touching. "Someone's trying to mimic the original artist's signature, but the muscle memory patterns don't match." "Are you saying these are forgeries?" Maya's eyes widened. "I'm saying it's worth investigating." Elijah's gaze shifted to Vanessa's closed office door. Maybe this is what Zoe discovered. As they left the gallery, the found phone vibrated in Elijah's pocket. His heart raced as he answered, Maya leaning close to listen. "Have you found anything?" Dominic's voice came through clearly. "Maybe," Elijah replied. "There's something strange about the paintings." And the gallery owner seemed uncomfortable when we asked about Zoe. "Zoe mentioned the Katsaros collection in her last message," Dominic confirmed. "Said something wasn't right about it." When the call ended, Maya's expression had transformed from skepticism to determination. "We need to see her apartment," she declared. "Tonight." Under the fading afternoon light, they walked side by side, their shoulders occasionally brushing. For the first time in years, Elijah felt the curious sensation of connecting with another person without exhaustion. as if Maya's presence somehow bypassed his usual social filters. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once, like suddenly discovering he could breathe underwater. Hidden pattern. Zoe's apartment was exactly what Elijah would expect from an art student. Organized chaos. Colorful sketches covered the walls. Art supplies spilled across every surface, and half-finished projects cluttered the small living space. Yellow police tape remained on the door, evidence of a cursory investigation that had clearly concluded nothing suspicious. "They barely looked," Maya muttered, snapping photos with her phone as Elijah carefully examined Zoe's desk. Using the spare key Dominic had directed them to, hidden beneath a loose brick in the courtyard, they'd entered the apartment with the strange sensation of trespassing in someone's life. Every object seemed both ordinary and potentially significant. A coffee mug with dried residue, textbooks with highlighted passages, bills paper-clipped together. Elijah focused on Zoe's laptop, open but password protected. 3 failed attempts would likely lock them out permanently. "Try Katsaros," Maya suggested, peering over his shoulder. "Too obvious," Elijah replied, studying the collection of sticky notes surrounding the computer. His eyes caught on one with seemingly random letters and numbers. "Wait, this isn't random." He typed the sequence and the screen unlocked, revealing Zoe's desktop. Maya squeezed his shoulder. "How did you know?" "It's a linguistic pattern, substituting numbers for similar-looking letters, but with an art history twist." Elijah navigated through folders, finding one labeled simply K. Inside were dozens of photos, close-ups of paintings, particularly signatures and brushstrokes, alongside images of documentation and certificates of authenticity. She was investigating the Katsaros collection, Maya confirmed, leaning closer, her cheek nearly touching his as they scrolled through files. Elijah became acutely aware of her proximity, the light floral scent of her shampoo momentarily distracting him from their discovery. Subfolder labeled comparisons contained side-by-side images of paintings, official photographs from museum archives next to similar shots presumably taken at Palmer Gallery. She was documenting discrepancies, Elijah realized. Building evidence of forgery. Maya straightened suddenly. Check her social media. If she was worried about someone finding this research, she might have hidden messages elsewhere. Elijah navigated to Zoe's social media profiles, finding posts that appeared ordinary at first glance. Typical art student content with photos of projects and inspirational quotes about creativity. But examining the posts chronologically revealed a pattern. "The first letter of each post for the past 2 weeks," he murmured, writing them down. "They spell out Vanessa fake Katsaros." "A message hidden in plain sight," Maya whispered. "Clever girl." Their investigation continued into the night, piecing together Zoe's movements through receipts, calendar entries, and notes. The found phone remained silent, as if Dominic were giving them space to work. By midnight, they had constructed a timeline suggesting Zoe had discovered the Katsaros paintings were forgeries, gathered evidence, and planned to confront Vanessa or possibly alert authorities the day she disappeared. Exhaustion eventually overtook them. They collapsed on Zoe's small sofa, surrounded by their notes and theories. Maya's head drooped against Elijah's shoulder, her breathing gradually slowing as she drifted towards sleep. He remained still, afraid any movement might disrupt this unexpected intimacy. "Do you ever feel like you're meant for something more than what you planned?" she asked drowsily, her voice barely above a whisper. "Until this week, I only ever planned to hide in libraries and analyze text patterns," Elijah admitted. "Never thought I'd be investigating art forgery or missing persons. Or meeting someone who doesn't make you want to run away?" He smiled in the dimness. "That too." Maya shifted, turning to face him. For a heartbeat, they simply looked at each other, a new language forming between them that required no words. When she leaned forward to press her lips against his, Elijah found himself responding without the overthinking that plagued his every other social interaction. His hand, 5 fingers trembling slightly, cupped her cheek as they shared a kiss that felt both surprising and inevitable. They broke apart at the sound of footsteps in the hallway outside, heavy and purposeful, passing Zoe's door before continuing down the corridor. A reminder of the world beyond this momentary connection. "We should get some rest," Maya whispered against his lips. "Tomorrow we need to find out what happened after Zoe confronted Vanessa." As they settled back against the sofa, Elijah's arm around Maya's shoulders. He realized his life had somehow upended completely in less than 48 hours, all because he'd picked up a lost phone instead of walking past. Whatever happened next, he couldn't bring himself to regret that decision. Shadows and light morning sunlight filtered through Zoe's curtains, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air and the scattered evidence of their investigation. Elijah woke with a stiff neck from sleeping upright on the sofa, Maya's head still resting against his shoulder. For a moment he allowed himself to simply exist in this strange new reality, one where he had kissed a beautiful, passionate woman and was actively investigating a potential crime. The found phone vibrated against his thigh, breaking the peaceful moment. Maya stirred as Elijah carefully extracted the phone from his pocket. "Tell me you found something," Dominic's voice came through, clearer than ever before. Elijah quickly summarized their discoveries while Maya rubbed sleep from her eyes and began organizing their notes from the previous night. "Art forgery." Dominic sighed heavily. That explains why she was so cryptic in her messages. She didn't want to make accusations without proof. A pause. "There's something else you should know. I'm not just Zoe's father. I was a police detective before an injury forced me into early retirement. That's why I knew the department wouldn't take her disappearance seriously without evidence." "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" Maya asked, fully alert now. "Would you have believed some stranger claiming to be both a missing girl's father and a former cop?" Dominic countered. "I needed you to investigate without preconceptions." After ending the call with a promise to meet Dominic later, they decided to return to Palmer Gallery. If Vanessa was behind Zoe's disappearance, confronting her directly seemed risky, but they needed more evidence before involving authorities. "We'll claim we're doing a story on emerging artists for the university paper," Maya suggested as they approached the gallery. "Get her talking about Katsaros while I record the conversation." The gallery appeared busier than their previous visit, with several well-dressed patrons examining artwork. Vanessa stood near the Katsaros collection, speaking animatedly to a potential buyer. When she spotted them, her expression flickered between recognition and annoyance before settling into a professional smile. "The dedicated friends," she greeted them coolly. "Still no word from our Zoe?" "Actually, we're here on university newspaper business," Maya explained, switching effortlessly into journalist mode. "We're featuring local galleries supporting emerging artists. The Katsaros collection seems particularly significant." Vanessa's posture relaxed slightly. "Indeed. Discovering Nikolai Katsaros was quite the coup for our little gallery. His work is already attracting serious collectors." She gestured them toward the paintings. "What would you like to know?" As Maya engaged Vanessa with questions about provenance and artistic technique, Elijah casually drifted toward the back of the gallery. The receptionist from yesterday was absent, leaving the desk momentarily unattended. With a deep breath to steady his nerves, Elijah slipped behind it and quickly searched through folders until finding one labeled Katsaros. Inside were shipping manifests and customs forms that immediately raised red flags. According to the documentation, the paintings had been imported from Greece 6 months ago, but the paper stock and printing style of the forms appeared too new, the creases too crisp for documents that had allegedly traveled internationally and been handled multiple times. His heart racing, Elijah quickly photographed several pages with his phone before returning the folder. As he emerged from behind the desk, he locked eyes with a broad-shouldered man in an expensive suit who had just entered through the back door. The man's expression hardened with suspicion. "Can I help you?" the man asked, his voice deceptively soft as he blocked Elijah's path. "Just looking for a restroom," Elijah stammered, his social anxiety flooding back in full force. The man's 2 hands, massive with thick fingers, clenched slightly. "Restrooms are for paying customers only." Across the gallery, Vanessa had noticed the confrontation and was quickly concluding her conversation with Maya. Elijah managed to slide past the imposing man, rejoining Maya as Vanessa approached with forced pleasantness. "I see you've met my security consultant, Mr. Reed," Vanessa said smoothly. "He's very protective of our valuable collection." Maya hooked her arm through Elijah's. "We were just finishing up." "Thank you for your time, Ms. Palmer." Outside on the sidewalk, Maya maintained her composed expression until they turned the corner, then pulled Elijah into a side alley. "She knows we're onto something," she whispered urgently. That security consultant appeared out of nowhere as soon as she saw you behind the desk. I found shipping documents, Elijah explained, showing her the photos. They're forgeries. The paper is too new, the crease is too fresh. Did they see you taking pictures? Before Elijah could answer, the sound of footsteps echo. The final piece. The old factory warehouse on the outskirts of town had clearly seen better days. Rusted metal and broken windows created an apocalyptic silhouette against the evening sky, as Elijah, Maya, and Dominic Winters surveyed it from their vantage point across the street. "You're sure this is the place?" Dominic asked, his weathered face tense with concern and hope. At 53, he carried himself with the unmistakable bearing of law enforcement. Observant eyes, measured movements, and an economy of expression that contrasted sharply with the emotional father who had first called Elijah on the mysterious phone. Elijah nodded, gesturing to the shipping manifests on his laptop screen. All the fake documentation lists this address as the receiving facility, and I found an email in Vanessa's records scheduling a special delivery here tonight. After their encounter with Reed, they had connected with Dominic in person, a tall man with the same warm brown skin and curly hair as his daughter in the phone's photo, but with gray threading through his temples and lines of worry etched around his eyes. With his help and his former police connections, they had obtained a warrant to search Vanessa's office computer. The evidence they uncovered revealed not just art forgery but an entire operation. Counterfeit paintings created locally, false documentation establishing foreign provenance, and sales to unsuspecting collectors at inflated prices. "My daughter could be in there," Dominic said quietly, his hand resting on the genuine police badge he'd been temporarily reinstated to carry for this operation. 2 unmarked police cars idled nearby, waiting for his signal. "She will be," Maya assured him, her journalist recorder ready to document whatever they found. "Everything points to this warehouse being their base of operations. If they're holding Zoe anywhere, it's here." The plan was straightforward. Dominic and the police officers would enter first, securing the scene and any suspects. Elijah and Maya would follow once it was safe, documenting evidence for both the police investigation and Maya's now legitimate news story exposing the forgery ring. As darkness fell completely, they watched a black SUV arrive at the warehouse. Vanessa emerged from the passenger side with Reed driving. They entered using a side door, light briefly spilling onto the cracked pavement before darkness reclaimed the building. "That's our cue," Dominic said, signaling to the waiting officers. The next 20 minutes unfolded with a surreal intensity that Elijah would later struggle to describe in coherent language. The police entry, the shouts of "freeze" and "police" echoing through the cavernous space. Vanessa's outraged protest giving way to calculated silence once she realized the extent of evidence against her. Reed's brief attempt to flee before being tackled by 2 officers. And finally, the discovery of a small office in the back of the warehouse, door locked from the outside, where Zoe Winters sat surrounded by painting supplies and partially completed forgeries. "Dad?" Her voice broke as Dominic rushed to embrace her, their arms, 2 each ending in 5-fingered hands, wrapped tightly around each other in a reunion that brought tears to Elijah's eyes. "You found me," she whispered into her father's shoulder. "How did you find me?" Dominic's gaze shifted to Elijah and Maya standing in the doorway. "I had help from some very determined friends." Later, as police processed the scene and paramedics checked Zoe for injuries, she explained everything. She had suspected the forgeries after noticing inconsistencies in brush technique compared to genuine Katsaros works she'd studied in art history. Her investigation had led her to discover the warehouse operation, but Vanessa had caught her taking photographs of shipping documents. "They needed me alive," Zoe explained, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "I can paint well enough to mimic other artists' styles. They wanted me to help with the forgeries." "You've been missing for nearly a week," Maya noted, recorder capturing every word with Zoe's permission. "Your father has been frantic." Zoe's expression softened. "I managed to hide my phone when they grabbed me. Used it to call my dad once, but then the battery died. I'm just grateful he found a way to reach you." Elijah's hand instinctively touched the pocket where the mysterious phone had been, only to find it empty. Somehow, in the chaos of the police operation, it had vanished as inexplicably as it had appeared on that rainy afternoon outside the library. 2 weeks later, Elijah sat in his usual corner of the university library, but nothing else remained usual about his life. Vanessa and Reed faced multiple charges related to art forgery, fraud, and kidnapping. Zoe had returned to classes, occasionally joining Elijah and Maya for coffee and comparing notes on their shared experience. And Maya, still hiding in the linguistics section? Her voice pulled him from his thoughts as she slid into the chair beside him, casually intertwining her fingers with his. Old habits, he admitted with a smile that came easier now. But I'm considering branching out. Journalism, perhaps? She raised an eyebrow. My editor loved our expose on the forgery ring. Said we make a good team. We do, Elijah agreed, no longer surprised by how natural conversation with her had become. Outside the library windows, students crossed the campus courtyard where a flip phone had once waited to be found. Elijah sometimes wondered about its mysterious appearance and equally mysterious disappearance, whether Dominic had somehow orchestrated an impossible connection, or whether some questions simply had no linguistic pattern to decode them. What remained certain was that his life had transformed in ways he could never have anticipated. His social anxiety hadn't miraculously vanished, but it had become manageable in the face of more important concerns, like helping others, uncovering truth, and opening himself to connection. As Maya leaned her head against his shoulder, pointing out a particularly interesting passage in the article she was reading, Elijah felt a profound sense of gratitude for whatever force had placed that phone in his path. Some whispers in the static were worth answering, even for the shyest among us.